Hello and welcome to Woodpods, the podcast designed to share sporting experience and knowledge to instill passion within the NLCS Dubai community on behalf of Team NLCS. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Lindsey Lovegrove. Lindsey and I have known each other for a few years, and Lindsey has a very interesting story to share. She has been involved professionally in the last 5 Olympic Games as a sports journalist and communications manager. She headed up the communications for the International Badminton Federation until 2005, where she then exchanged the world of badminton to join the world of sailing, as she became the sailing communications manager for the GB Olympic and Paralympic sailing team for the following 3 Olympic Games. So welcome, Lindsey.
Good morning, Ms. Woodruff. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Okay, so we're going to kick off with a few questions because obviously we want the children to really feel inspired by your story and hopefully connect. So first question we've got for you is, where did your passion come from to be involved in sport?
Yeah, I think when I was growing up, I guess sport was always a part of my life. I'm the middle of 3 children, so I grew up with an older brother who was always into sport, kicking a football around, playing cricket, playing tennis, and I guess I wanted to hang out with him. So if I wanted to do that, then I needed to learn how to kick a football back and how to hit a ball back at him. So I was always involved in playing sport at some level or another when I was younger. My parents were big sports fans from a spectating point of view as well. So it was always part of my younger life growing up. I played a lot of sport at school. So I was in most of the teams. I was never particularly amazing at any sport, but good enough to sort of feature in all the team sports we played at school.
Brilliant. And why journalism?
Yeah, that's another good question. I guess I sort of came into it fortuitously, really. I probably, like a lot of the students listening, you get to sort of your teenage years and you start to think about what you'd like to do with your life and with your career. I really didn't have a clue when I was 15 or 16 years old, and I remember going to a series of meetings with our careers advisor at school thinking, oh, I don't really know, I'm not sure. And I couldn't face going to a 3rd meeting in a row telling my careers advisor that I didn't really still know what I wanted to do. So I sat down and finally gave it some thought about all the things that I thought I was good at. I really enjoyed writing. I really enjoyed understanding the world around me when I was at school. I was very inquisitive, very curious. And I guess at some point those pieces of the puzzle naturally sort of fitted together to form a sort of journalism strand to my thinking. So that's how that came about. And I went off and did a 3-year degree in journalism at Bournemouth University, multimedia journalism, which was great fun.
Fantastic. And after you did your degree, obviously you had some avenues and some paths to choose and to follow. So what happened between then and your first involvement with the Olympics in Sydney, which took place in 2000?
Yeah, I was very lucky, I guess. I didn't envisage when I first started out in my journalism degree that I would walk into a sports role. I suppose it was always in my train of thought that one day that would happen, but I guess like most people starting out in a journalism career back then, certainly that you thought you'd cut your teeth in local newspapers or a local radio station or something and build your career from there. But very quickly after I graduated from university, the International Badminton Federation were advertising for a media person, really, someone to edit their website content, their news content, and their magazine content. So I thought that would look quite an interesting role, and applied for that and fell into that, really. So I started out with the International Badminton Federation 3 or 4 months after I graduated, and then a year after that was the Sydney Olympics. So it was a very quick build-up, and it was great to be involved at that time.
Fantastic. And how do you think you've ended up with such great career opportunities?
I guess there's lots of different strands to how a career unfolds, but for me it was about being willing to say yes to opportunities that came my way, being open-minded. As I mentioned, I didn't originally intend to set out into a career straight into sports journalism, sports communications, but that's what happened, and just opened my mind to the opportunities that came along. Yeah, that was the first thing, really, just being open-minded and able to sort of look at opportunities and see where they may take you.
Fantastic. That fits really well with our NLCS ethos that we have, trying yourself out. So thank you for saying yes to those opportunities. Obviously, in an education environment, we're always looking to build essential skills within our students to make sure that they can make the best of their potential and opportunities that come come their way. What would you say the essential skills are to be a successful sports journalist?
I guess there are different strands to that. I guess from a technical point of view, you obviously need to write well. You need to, especially in this day and age, I suppose, a journalism career is about being multi-stranded, multifaceted in your skill set. And I suppose that's where my multimedia background comes into play. We learned not just about print journalism, about writing for newspapers and magazines, but also radio, podcasting, TV work as well. So the way journalism has gone, you certainly, it's to your benefit to have all those different skills under your belt. The ability to construct a story, to ask questions, pointed questions sometimes to get to the truth of what you're looking to find out. So yeah, natural curiosity combined with a technical ability and a tenacity, I suppose. You might not get the answers you're looking for the first time round, but you need to find a way to try and get to the bottom of what you're trying to uncover.
Brilliant. Okay, and how about the desirable skills? Because obviously when you're recruiting for these types of roles, there's always essential skills and then there's always desirable skills, the icing on the cake. So what sort of icing on the cake skills would you advise our students to go and seek out if they wish to be recruited for a job of this nature?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think definitely that passion and curiosity, and I would be looking for somebody who's really taking that extra step to try and show their commitment to the subject. There are loads of opportunities both within companies and personal opportunities to show and to develop your craft. Blogging, video diaries, that kind of thing, or all within your gift to try and practice and show people that you've got a skill and a talent for journalism. But also certainly trying to get your foot in the door with companies to gain experience will be invaluable. So again, I would encourage you to say yes to opportunities wherever you can to develop that craft and really try and get your foot in the door that way.
Now, you've been involved with the Olympic cycles or the Olympics for 16 years, and that's a very, very long time in anyone's lifetime.
Very old, Miss Woodruff.
It's some of our students that will be listening won't even be 16 yet, so it is a long time. It's the whole of their lifetime for some of them. So in terms of the changes that you've seen in both sport and technology, what do you think might be of interest for our listeners to hear?
I think, you're right. 16 years is a long time in any career, and certainly in this one. But it hasn't felt like I've been in the same job for 16 years because the skill set and the opportunities and the outlets, I suppose, have changed so much in that time. I remember when I started out in my role with Badminton, the digital camera we used took 3.5-inch floppy disks for its storage medium. And we would send out our press release material via fax machine. Maybe some of your students listening don't even really know what a fax machine is, but those were the tools we had in those days. And email distribution was not really a big thing, but it grew very quickly. So in my time, I've had to get to grips with a lot of those changes. The tools we use to tell our story and the platforms we use to tell our story. Social media has changed the game. Exponentially, really.
Thank you.
I guess just making sure that you're always trying to keep on with your learning and keep pace as far as you can with the changes in technology and changes in opportunities that present.
Absolutely. At NLCS, we talk about instilling and creating passion. So 16 years is a long time for you to be involved in one industry. So I'm sure that the students would love to know, how have you managed to maintain your passion for 16 years?
Yeah, I think I've mentioned before, it hasn't really felt like 16 years in the same job because the two roles between my badminton role and my sailing role were very different. So from that end, it was a sort of switch in skill sets and a change in requirements. But I guess particularly with my sailing role, where I was working with elite athletes and coaches towards achieving their Olympic dreams, it was inspiring just to be around people like that. They never took their foot off the gas at all in pursuit of their goal, which was winning Olympic medals. And so I had to be the same. I was a member of their support team, supporting them to reach their goal. And I had to be at the top of my game as much as they did to support them.
Fantastic. Okay, so we're just touching now on the differences between working with the Badminton Federation and the GB sailing team. So can you just talk us through how maybe your roles kind of evolved through your career, and how it kind of came to that crescendo of working with the athletes as well as just doing the communications part?
Yeah, so when I started out in my badminton role, initially it was, as I mentioned earlier, a case of managing their editorial content, so their news content on their website and also their internal magazines. That then developed into more of a media relations role, I suppose. I didn't have a press officer for the federation at the time, so my role expanded into sort of looking after the media, the journalists that were calling in and writing in with inquiries and setting up interviews with athletes and things like that. And then also at the major events, I would run the media operations, so looking after all the journalists that came to the events to report on the events, making sure they had all the information and the tools and the support they needed, and also access the athletes that they needed to interview to tell the story of the event. So that role changed very much, I suppose, in itself. And then when I moved into sailing, again, it was a big switch into more proactive communication. Sailing in the UK, particularly, although it's a very successful sport in terms of results, it's not a very high profile sport. So the role was then really trying to work alongside journalists, national broadcasters, to try and make sure sailing got its piece of the pie, I suppose, and telling the story of how successful we were as a sport and raising the profile of the athletes involved. So yeah, so that was a different switch again.
And how did the Olympics compare to the Paralympics?
They were both amazing events. Everyone was kind of unique in its own way, and I guess that's what a host country wants you to come away from. That it's an amazing spectacle, not only of sport but of humanity, of culture. It's an amazing coming together, biggest peacetime gathering of people on earth. So yeah, it's an amazing event in itself. And the Paralympics, again, it's the same. I think the Paralympics has changed a lot in the time that I've been working with Paralympic athletes, and the awareness of disability and ability of people with disabilities has grown a lot. So certainly in the UK, the London 2012 Paralympics was a massive showcase for Paralympic sport, and really put disability rights, disability awareness on the map.
Absolutely. Okay, so moving on, top 3 moments of your career so far.
Top 3 moments.
Yeah. What have been your highlights of working with the Olympics Games over the last 16 years?
Yeah. So my first, I suppose, definitely the Sydney Olympics. My first one has to be a highlight. I was sat at the opening ceremony, watching, in the stadium in Sydney, watching the opening ceremony for the Sydney 2000 Games, a year after I graduated for uni, not really quite understanding how I got there, but it was a massive spectacle that it was, and just thinking, wow, this is amazing. I'm so lucky to have witnessed this and to have been here, and I want some more of this. So that was my first moment. I guess the major highlight in any person in my situation experience would be working at your home Olympics. So London 2012 for me, working with the sailing team, was a fantastic experience in itself. Just the way London put on the games, the way our team performed, all of those different things combined, and the way the country really got behind the games. It was off the back of a pretty difficult time, coming off the back of a recession, some pretty tough economic circumstances for the country, for the world actually. But the games really pulled everybody together and showed what the UK could do when it worked together. I suppose that's quite poignant for this particular moment in time when we're all facing some tough circumstances as well. My third one, what would be my third one? I suppose also London again, not the sport aspect, but we were lucky enough to go to the closing ceremony and to march in the closing ceremony for the London Games. And it wasn't so much that experience itself, but it was just walking to the stadium with the pathway lined by all the games makers, all the volunteers that had been part of the games and given their time, and just seeing their emotion and their pride in being involved in all of that. That was really quite, brought a little tear to my eye, just how everyone had got so behind the game in London.
Absolutely, it was a phenomenal experience and memory for us all here in the UK.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we've covered your career. Is there one takeaway that you could give to the children this morning?
Yeah, I think for me it was about being open-minded, saying yes to opportunities, seeking out opportunities to kind of get ahead wherever you can. And practice your craft. You never stop learning in this environment, as I mentioned earlier, and just trying to keep pace with all the change that comes about. I think that would be my piece of advice.
Well, that's great. Lindsey Lovegrove, thank you so much for your time today. You are going to be a star of the show in terms of our sports journalism aspect of this podcast. And a lot of the information that you've given us there is very insightful. And also, I think, just shows our community how you can be involved in sport, not necessarily as a participator, as an athlete, but with an interesting and positive role to play. And to have a career after sport. It's all possible.
Absolutely.
So thank you. So thank you so much. Good luck with your future career, and I'm sure that we will be in touch soon. Thanks very much, Lizzie. Bye.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Well, that concludes the first episode of Wednesday Woodpods, but not to worry. Each Wednesday we'll have a different speaker, and the Wednesday Woodpods next week will feature Mark Jono Johnson, an elite endurance athlete from the UK who is now living in Dubai, and he shares his experiences, his wisdom, and of course his passion and his trials and tribulations through a running career spanning over 30 years. Look forward to him speaking next week. Stay tuned for Wednesday Woodpods episode 2. Thanks for listening. You have been listening to Woodpods, a podcast designed to reach out to the NLCS Dubai community on behalf of Team NLCS.